The landscape of instant messaging software in 2026 is quite bleak. Most people use services like WhatsApp, Discord, Microsoft Teams, or even direct messages in social media sites for all of their personal or work-related communications. These services are all known for spying on their users for profit or because the feds told them to, vaguely enforcing abusive terms of service, locking you and your friends into their ecosystems, and not even securing sensitive information properly. Governments are constantly trying to introduce age verification laws, like in the UK, Australia, Brazil, and various US states. And backdoors in end-to-end encryption, such as Chat Control 1.0, which just got reintroduced despite the majority saying no. Don't you love democracy? And Chat Control 2.0, which keeps getting reproposed and rejected, to keep the population at bay, while they are fully exempt from all of this, as they want privacy and freedom just for themselves and their pedophilic endeavors. The only viable solution to this problem is to use free and open source end-to-end encrypted instant messengers, preferably decentralized or federated, which are verifiably secure and in the hands of the community. However, even the free and open options have their pros and cons, and in my years-long journey in looking for the best FOSS instant messengers, I may have finally found two gems that are miles ahead of everything else. So in this video I'm going to talk about my favorite FOSS Chat apps as of mid-2026, and I'll also talk a bit about some more famous options that usually get thrown around as recommendations and explain why I don't like them. Before recommending anything, we need to establish some general use cases, as not all IMs are equal in purpose and user experience. The main use case that's the most important for most people is private communication, essentially what stuff like WhatsApp or iMessage are typically used for, so chatting with your relatives and IRL friends. The second use case is group or team communication, which can be for pleasure and big public communities, like with Discord or TeamSpeak, or for work, like with Microsoft Teams or Slack. This often has a special focus on multi-user jump in, jump out type calls. Note that they don't have to be mutually exclusive. One software can cover both use cases, although I'd say that it's best not to overlap too much for privacy and usability reasons. Also, not everything that I'm gonna mention here will have end-to-end encryption, as that might not always be an absolute necessity. Of course, all of them have at the very least TLS encryption on the way to the destination server, so no man in the middle can intercept your conversations. Now I want to clarify the meaning of two terms I used. Decentralized means that the service is not being hosted by one single entity with its own fleet of servers, but it's divided up in many independent nodes, spread across the internet, that users connect to and interact with. This has many advantages, like not being tied to the single entity's abusive rules that could permanently ban you from the whole system any day. A federated service is a specific kind of decentralized service, where each node of the network acts as its own single server, often also called instance, with its own administrators and rules, but all of these can still talk to each other. Email works this way. You can be signed up to Gmail, Outlook, Yahoo, any email provider, but you will always be able to message someone signed up to a different one, because email servers speak the same language, they use the same protocols to communicate. And if you get banned from one provider or don't like their way of running the service, no big deal, sign up somewhere else. This is an important distinction to make, as the nodes of a decentralized network could also be the users themselves. That would be a peer-to-peer network, but let's not get too deep. Hopefully I give you the bare minimum of information to help you understand why I care about all of this. Now we can get to the actual recommendations. My top IM for private communication is DeltaChat. It's the easiest to use end-to-end encrypted FOSS messenger I've ever used. The look and feel is very reminiscent of old WhatsApp, and has pretty much all of its features: sending media, files and contacts, voice messages, stickers, calls, reactions, replies, ephemeral messages, Telegram-style channels, but it also has some unique stuff like WebXDC apps, which are like mini applications that you and your recipient can interact with. They vary from simple productivity tools like polls and calendar invites to full-blown games such as Quick 3 Arena. DeltaChat doesn't really have accounts in the traditional sense. It has local profiles that you can switch to, keeping chats and contacts separate. For example, I have 3 profiles, one for my relatives and friends, one for my online friends, and one public profile available on my website. You can add contacts with a simple QR code or by sharing a link. There are no usernames to worry about. Logging into a second device is also just a QR code scan away. Each profile is technically signed up to one of the various relay servers, which are the ones that actually deliver messages. Don't worry, it's all end-to-end encrypted. They haven't implemented perfect forward secrecy yet, but they had many security audits, and metadata leakage is pretty much zero. Metadata is information outside of the contents of a message, like user profile information, date and size of the message, etc. You can set up multiple relays in case your main one goes offline. You can also host your own relay. All of this is built on standard email tech, so DeltaChat is technically a Frankenstein of traditional email protocols and modern end-to-end encryption. And it works so well, you can't even notice that it's based on email most of the time. This, however, does hold DeltaChat back a bit in my opinion, as there are some limitations to email like sending and receiving time, which can take up to 5 seconds in the worst case scenario, and the size of attachments like videos and files, although that depends on the relay and there are WebXDC apps for sending large files as a workaround. Joining a channel means that you will have to receive every past post one at a time. I also often get very slow refresh times when looking for new messages, especially on the desktop app. Overall, it is the most usable and private option there is, and stands on its own merits as well. If you speak Italian, you might want to look at my in-depth tutorial on DeltaChat. For group or team communication, Fluxer is my top recommendation. Before you mention it, I know that Fluxer is still in beta and has a lot of work in progress stuff, but in the current state, it's already very good. And no, it's not vibe coded. Even though the lead developer makes use of artificial cancer coding tools, he has actually used his brain on this project for around 5 years and only made it public in early 2026. It wasn't created overnight. This is essentially a free and open source clone of Discord, which gained popularity after the Discord age verification fiasco. The interface is nearly identical and has all of the same features, except for the flashy Nitro ads, although they do have an equivalent to Nitro. More on that later. You can have communities, the equivalent to Discord servers, with text and voice channels, GIFs, custom emojis and stickers, reactions, replies, markdown syntax, roles, invite links, screen sharing, powerful bots and moderation tools, you name it. Obviously there's also DMs with groups and friend requests. Unlike Discord, the Fluxer devs are okay with modified clients. Oh, with client I mean the application, I'll use this term a lot later. They even offer custom CSS support themselves. You can self-host your own Fluxer instance and Federation is in the works. Plus you can import Discord server templates to recreate all of your channels and settings. There is a mobile client for Android and iOS, but it's still very early, so some features are not fully implemented yet. Other future plans include threads and forums that can be published on the web, making them actually discoverable on search engines, Telegram-style secret chats with end-to-end encryption, and a way for online celebrities to monetize their communities through Patreon-style subscriptions. Users also have a subscription of their own. Fluxer Plutonium is essentially Discord Nitro but cheaper. It offers you higher character and file upload limits, better screen sharing quality, early access to new features, fancy cosmetics and more. When you self-host, you can get all the perks for free. This is just for the official instance as a way to fund development. This is neat considering how FOSS projects usually struggle with funding. So there is an actual company behind this project, a small Swedish startup with a proper business model that I don't see going bankrupt anytime soon. But even if they enshittify one day, the FOSS and soon-to-be federated nature of Fluxer would be its saving grace. I guess the only missing features are the rich presence gain status and community events. In conclusion, Fluxer is the Discord replacement. Its UI and feature set are nearly identical. It's probably fine for work stuff too, but maybe something like Mattermost, Zulip or rocket.chat might be better depending on your needs. Can't say much about those three though, as I have little to no experience with them. I also have some honorable mentions for other decent IMs for groups and teams. Mumble is a simple channel-based VoIP application, similar to the old TeamSpeak 3, and it's usually my go-to software for having a quick voice chat with a friend or for playing a game together. It's not as feature-rich as Fluxer or Discord, it doesn't even have video supporting calls, and the text chat is quite bare bones, but it is a lightweight just works option. Unless you're a Mac user, I've heard the Apple Silicon port is kinda terrible. With unique features like granular sound settings and positional audio for games that support it. It also has push-to-talk, a built-in recorder, ACLs for setting permissions, and a game overlay. Registering your nickname on a server involves using a certificate rather than an account system, which may sound complicated, but in practice you never have to think about it after the first setup wizard. If you change computer or want to use Mumble on a secondary one, you can copy over the certificate file and preserve your registered nicks. There are unofficial mobile clients, but the iOS one hasn't been updated since 2017. You can easily host your own Mumble server as well. It's very light on resources. I also made a whole video in Italian about Mumble, but then she has a good English tutorial as well. Jitsi Meet is an equivalent to Zoom or Google Meet. Share your screen, raise your hand, set a funny background, all you could need for a simple video conferencing software is here. If you don't like the fact that the official instance requires you to log into Google, there's plenty of other public instances or you could host your own. Another similar software is Big Blue Button, but I think I used it like once in my entire life, so I can't say anything. IRC, the staple of all public chat rooms. Since the 80s, the Internet Relay Chat protocol has carried online discourse for millions of people and still has diehard fans to this day. Yes, it's text only. Registering your nick is annoying, it has no end-to-end encryption or chat history, but if all you need is instant text and jumping into random conversations with strangers, IRC is still king. Maybe one day we will see it super modernized thanks to IRC v3, but I haven't seen anything concrete yet. So this is my lineup for the best free and open source instant messengers: Delta Chat for private communications and Fluxer for groups or teams, plus those honorable mentions. We can now move on to the spicy part of the video, where I talk shit about other projects. Big disclaimer, the following critiques are not intended to be offensive attacks on the users or developers of these projects, so don't go bother them. If you and your friends are already using one of these and are perfectly satisfied with it, keep using it. I simply want to explain why I don't like them, and why I think you, a person who hasn't switched to anything yet, should not use them. The most well-known option among FOSS enthusiasts and developers is certainly Matrix. Matrix is a chat protocol designed with federation, end-to-end encryption, and cross-server synchronization of messages and identities in mind. It has several client and server implementations, and most FOSS projects use it as their main way of chatting, usually in conjunction with a bridge bot, which relays messages between other platforms as well. However, Matrix has a significant number of problems, so many I am a bit indecisive on where to begin. The protocol itself is extremely slow and inefficient. Simple actions like joining or leaving a room, fetching messages and public room lists take absolutely forever, especially when the server uses signups, the original backend written in Python. It also has a huge metadata problem. So-called room events are spread on every server involved, often unencrypted and without the ability to be deleted. Even simple things like reacting to a message or changing your profile picture, leading to potentially sensitive information being stored in a bunch of unknown servers for eternity. Most users are signed up to the official matrix.org instance, which defeats the purpose of Matrix as a federated protocol, and means that this single server has the metadata of potentially every Matrix user. Kind of unsurprising when you discover that Amdocs, the company that originally created Matrix, has ties to Israeli intelligence and held American telephone records, but this could be the tinfoil speaking. Room states also break very often due to protocol bugs, forcing administrators to tombstone and recreate their rooms from scratch. Certain messages may not display due to unimplemented client features or the dreaded unable to decrypt message error due to faulty end-to-end encryption, which also has some vulnerabilities in its crypto library that the Matrix devs refuse to address properly. This is the worst nightmare for every Matrix user. Even if you import your keys again, type in the recovery phrase, verify with another device, wait for your recipient to send a new message, sell your soul to the Mossad and recite the B-movie script in reverse while parkouring skyscrapers on a unicycle with a blindfold, there's no guarantee your old messages will be readable again. I've also heard that split-brained rooms can happen, and that it's possible to forge messages into a room's history, that is, if you can make sense of its non-linear nature. Everything about this protocol looks to be a complete fucking mess, but don't worry, it gets worse. User accounts cannot be deleted. You heard that right. A chat system that's supposed to be focused on privacy and encryption has accounts that can only be disabled and erased. They say it's GDPR compliant though. Not fully removed from the server unless you manually delete it from the database, risking to wipe other important data by accident. Speaking of the database, that can get so big since it syncs nearly every chat from every server it has ever talked with, even if your server is a small single user instance. Hopefully you do regular cleanups of all the orphaned messages and attachments. Speaking of cleanups, one of the most infamous and rampant issues with Matrix is that public rooms often get raided by bots spamming child pornography, forcing users and server administrators to clean their client and server caches to get rid of that shit completely. I don't want to imagine how many unsuspecting admins may have had illegal content surreptitiously synced to their servers without them knowing. For years, moderation tooling in Matrix has been way too lackluster to combat this problem. The permission system is too basic, and the moderation bots aren't as powerful as Discord bots. When you ask the Matrix devs how to deal with this, or with more normal spam problems, they just tell you to ignore the spammer, or that it's completely impossible to sort out. And this software is deployed and trusted by many governments and companies. They can't be old friends of Uncle Jeff. Of course, they care more about selling licenses of their non-free enterprise version of it to these high-profile customers than helping the FOSS community they've built their staff and user base on. Deeming the AGPL to be legally risky, they wouldn't want their nice, convenient admin panel to be available to open-source peasants. And they have the balls to throw shade at WhatsApp and Signal by saying that users falling for scams are somehow a data breach on their end. Frankly, these people, whether they're actual developers or highly incompetent marketing people, don't deserve anybody's trust and attention. They give the community the middle finger at every turn, refusing to solve long-standing problems outside of empty promises like P2P Matrix, which has been a work in progress for too long, or Matrix 2.0, which solved pretty much nothing. They are a bit like Mozilla with these constant shooting themselves in the foot moments, except that Mozilla software actually works. In terms of user experience, most people are just gonna use Element to save themselves the headache, and that's also slow and counterintuitive. Other clients are fine, but may have missing features or incomplete protocol implementations. The best ones I've tried are Shieldy Chat and Fluffy Chat. You may like the concept of spaces, in which you can easily group any room or DM you want, but for me I'd prefer a more hassle-free paradigm where I join a community which has all of its rooms there, no need to join them individually. Wait, it's got calls, but not voice channels. Why were people even recommending it as a Discord alternative? Oh right, because there wasn't anywhere else to go. For everything else, it's a standard chat app, nothing too extravagant, but the stickers rely on some weird bare-bones external system, although servers can enforce their own. In conclusion, Matrix is a project with a long track record of horrible design decisions, slow or non-existent development, and lack of care and respect towards its users unless they pay up thousands. The best course of action is for all community users, and especially FOSS development groups, to stop using it for their own safety. It's not like they care if you live on the German police base for their hosting. I shut down my own Matrix server in June 2026, also because for some reason I couldn't migrate the database from my old server to a new one, despite doing all the documented steps correctly. Goes to show how broken this stuff is. Another staple in messaging protocols is XMPP, created in 1999 and adopted as an official IETF standard in 2002. It has been the base for many important chat services of the past and present, such as Google Talk, WhatsApp, events on game chats, and Google's and Apple's mobile notification systems. It's a federated protocol with many client and server implementations, similarly to Matrix, with the difference that it's generally a lot more stable and lightweight, but it does have its fair share of problems, some of which are also similar to Matrix's. The protocol itself is not super capable. If you propose a protocol spec that introduces some cool new feature, chances are it's going to sit for years in the large pile of experimental RSCs that may get implemented by one obscure client, which essentially means no one is going to use it. A lot of clients implement the bare minimum to make things work, so it's not guaranteed that your recipients will be able to properly see all of your messages and actions, taking the problem of Matrix clients to the power of 100. XMPP doesn't do end-to-end encryption by default. You will typically use something called OMEMO on top of that, which is widely adopted by clients. Aside from the fact that not having end-to-end encryption as a core part of the protocol has its set of potential metadata issues, it can suffer from the Matrix syndrome, where you can see past messages because the keys weren't imported right, assuming you are using the same client, since most of them have their own backup formats that only they can parse. The OMEMO implementation your client uses may also be outdated and vulnerable, assuming the latest one isn't vulnerable. It's a Wild West. Setting up an XMPP server can be annoying, one of the reasons why Matrix is more popular. And in my experience, even when you set things up right according to the documentation, there's a high chance that you won't be able to upload attachments, you will be kicked out of a group chat hosted on another server due to some mysterious server-to-server communication error, or you won't be able to message a friend who is offline. What year are we in again? Am I using AIM? Or a supposedly modern chat protocol? It's often hard to tell, just like how it's hard to avoid a client that looks 25 years old while avoiding a client that has 3 features in total. So XMPP isn't as bad as Matrix, but it's arguably less usable for most people, unless the people you chat with are using the exact same client as you and very reliably set up servers. Development is too slow and fragmented for it to be taken seriously, unless you're particularly nerdy, like some people I know who love XMPP because more minimalism. Okay, that might be the same reason why a lot of people still use IRC, but at least that one works all the time. Another popular recommendation as a Discord alternative is Toad, formerly known as Revolt. Similarly to Fluxer, its interface is very reminiscent of Discord, but with a material design twist. I would have loved this as a kid. It has servers, groups, custom emojis, attachments up to 20 megabytes, roles, themes with custom CSS, and can be self-hosted, but calls don't have any video functionality, and this has been a big pain point for years. Their FAQ say that they could consider federation, but no work has ever been done. There are no mobile apps, and I've read that the developers aren't the best of people, and that some components of Stoat are closed source, but take that with a grain of salt, as I couldn't verify these claims. One funny thing that I found is that Andrew Tate created a website called The Real World for his community by using a modified version of Stoat, violating the AGPL since he didn't release the modifications, which made the Stoat devs rightfully mad. I don't have much to say about Stoat. It's alright, but it makes you wish you'd be using Fluxer instead. SimpleXChat is a decentralized chat service focusing on protecting user metadata and end-to-end encryption. It has profiles like DeltaChat, but they are fully local. All messages are routed through various servers in one way only, and with 2 layers of encryption, which is good for minimizing metadata and avoiding interceptions. Joining a chat or adding a contact is done through QR codes or links. Again, like DeltaChat. Every chat has settings that you can toggle on or off, like ephemeral messages, voice notes, calls, reactions, and message deletion. You can join a chat with an anonymous identity created on the spot just for that chat, which is especially useful for public groups. They recently introduced Telegram-style channels, and they have a roadmap with multi-channel groups and improvements to the desktop app, very much needed as you can't use it without connecting your phone and with just one device at a time. In my experience, connecting to the various relay servers is a bit wonky, taking several seconds or minutes to fetch messages, even when enabling extra relays. This is especially annoying with a spotty internet connection and in public groups, where you often lose various pieces of the conversation until a significant number of users connect to you. Notifications can also be a bit unreliable. In 2023, the project has received funding from Village Global, a venture capital firm with members such as Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and the Zuck, among other hideous creatures. That sounds really suspicious, although it might be the tinfoil speaking again, unless there is some crazy backdoor inside the publicly viewable source code. In 2024, it also got funding from Jack Dorsey. In conclusion, simple XChat is pretty good, but the unreliable connections, poor desktop experience, and the possible VC influence are a bit worrisome. The most well-known FOSS end-to-end encrypted IM in the normie world is Signal. It's often the number one recommendation as a WhatsApp alternative, and for good reason. It has the best end-to-end encryption out there with many security audits, holds extremely minimal metadata, demonstrated by Fed subpoenas, and has pretty much all the same features as WhatsApp, and is funded by the original developers of WhatsApp. Unfortunately, it's a centralized service that requires a phone number, and despite having the server source code up, excluding the anti-spam system, it heavily relies on American big tech infrastructure, such as AWS and Microsoft Azure. Plus, they collaborated with a cryptocurrency firm called MobileCoin in 2021 to work on some kind of cryptocurrency integration, which caused the server code to not be published for almost an entire year. MobileCoin had affiliations with FTX, a cryptocurrency exchange which closed in 2022 due to fraud. The Signal devs and its community are quite hostile towards third-party clients, such as Moldy, which removes Signal's telemetry and proprietary blobs for Google notifications and adds various privacy features. Signal is also pretty good, but its various downsides and especially the reliance on American big tech makes it a bit unattractive in the current political landscape and with all the talks about digital sovereignty. If you want to use Signal, I recommend doing it with the Moldy client. Another famous one among normies is Telegram. Yes, Telegram is open source, but only when it comes to the clients. The server code is proprietary. You may already know and love it for all of its great features and UX, all the meme channels and stickers, but in my opinion, Telegram has to be the most dangerous of all messaging platforms. The tamest part of it all is that it's a centralized service that requires a phone number, but it gets worse. Despite the marketing claims about how Telegram is secure and private, all messages are not end-to-end encrypted unless you use secret chats, which are very inconvenient to use and are not native on desktop. Messages are stored together with their decryption keys on Telegram's data centers, meaning they can read your messages whenever they want. After years of allegedly not ever releasing user data to authorities, they caved in after Telegram's CEO and founder, Pavel Durov, was arrested in France in 2024. But their FAQs still say to this day that they, quote, have disclosed 0 bytes of user messages to third parties, including governments. They even have an official bot to tell you if your country has had any data disclosure, which is nice for transparency, but contradicts their claims. An investigative article by Important Stories revealed possible connections between Telegram and the FSB through a company that handles their network infrastructure. And for some reason, dumb criminals or even innocent dissidents and protesters love this platform under the false assumption that it's private. Telegram's own protocol, MT-Proto, has had various criticisms over the years, like how rolling your own encryption algorithm instead of using well-established ones is generally considered a bad idea. The latest one is that MT-Proto 2.0 can expose device identifiers to the network, although I'm not an expert in the field, so I can't say much. Not to mention that over the years Telegram has become an AI and NFT slopfest. Even when Telegram itself doesn't do anything bad, the community around it does some disgusting shit. There's a 90% chance that every public group chat on Telegram you ever joined has some Russian OSINT user bots, logging every message and every profile change, tracking users everywhere they go, sometimes even taking note of leaked phone numbers. And worst of all, these bots can be searched and used by anyone to track users. Another reminder to be wary with what you say in public internet spaces. Third-party clients are usually a strong point, but with Telegram they can be a problem, like Necogram violating the GPL by not releasing the source code anymore, and later implementing a backdoor that sends the user's phone number to an OSINT bot. The creator of Necogram also has his own skeletons in the closet. Another reminder to have reproducible builds in your software. There's a client called Iogram that can retain deleted messages or make you appear completely offline. A stalker's best friend, probably. There was also a case where a well-known moderation bot called GroupHelp was caught collecting messages and user data for the Italian police. In conclusion, Telegram is the biggest Russian honeypot ever conceived by humankind. The absolute worst place to be in if you care about privacy. Probably even worse than WhatsApp. Avoid it like the plague. There are smaller projects like Threema, which is a centralized paid service, which is not bad per se, but normies aren't gonna shell out money for something they can get for free everywhere else. Session, which is supposedly decentralized but their servers were about to be shut down due to lack of funding until some generous users started donating, and also has no forward secrecy at all. Jammy, which has interesting integrations with SIP systems and distributed hash tables, but it's peer-to-peer, so if you're offline you can't receive anything, and the voice notes in the Android app require an unknown external app for some reason. Briar, which just announced to be going in maintenance-only mode, talks with similar peer-to-peer issues as Jammy, in addition to the possibility of coming into contact with malicious peers, not to mention any lack of features or polished UX these options might have. There's more professional projects like Zulip, Mattermost and rocket.chat, but I have little to no experience with them, sorry. If you don't care about metadata, email with PGP encrypted contents might be enough for you. Also, if you have an Nextcloud server, there's the official Talk app, which is a bit bare bones, but might be enough for you. Although if you don't have full encryption on the whole instance, your messages will sit there unencrypted as well. Final thoughts. Most of the FOSS space settled on the awful Matrix protocol because everything else is worse, and normies usually lock themselves into botnets. DeltaChat and Fluxer are the only currently available alternatives that I deem to be a viable escape from this unfortunate reality. Video is over, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button for more software slanders.